Well, folks, here we are again for the weekly forecast. During this past week, of course, we had some of the very significant activity last week, and that did drop some considerable amounts of precipitation across portions of the southwestern Sandhills, southwestern corner of the state, and of course in northeast Nebraska. Some of these areas received well over 2 inches, and of course, unfortunately, we didn't see it broad-based across the state, but there were some areas that did see some favorable precipitation, and then, of course, this led to some planting delay issues. We had completed about 85% of the corn planting according to NASA as of Sunday. I suspected that we've been pretty much stalled out since then. And of course, as we're getting toward the end of May with soybean planting and of course the remainder of the corn planting left to go, there's a concern with this recent precipitation. Unfortunately, it does look like we're going to have a very active pattern for this next 7 days with the potential for some significant accumulating rainfall across portions of eastern Nebraska. So let's get into the main brunt of the forecast, and as we go to the maps, what we'll notice is that we do have a trough across the western United States. It's going to be making its way into the region. We're going to have a southwesterly flow aloft, and we're bringing that moisture at the surface up from the Gulf of Mexico. So we will have the ability to generate some thunderstorm activity, particularly in the late afternoon hours of today, and then that'll carry on overnight. The best areas for precipitation will be across eastern Nebraska, less so as you get into western Nebraska. As we go into tomorrow, we'll start to see that trough digging into northern California, and again, more energy will be shooting out into the region. So it's not going to be a complete washout, but we're going to have periods of thunderstorm activity, particularly in the morning, then the redevelopment in the late afternoon to overnight hours. And again, as we go into Monday, we'll see that trough starts to dig even farther, and that's going to give us the ability to start seeing some thunderstorm activity once again develop during the overnight hours. So we're going to have to really pay attention, especially if you're camping. Keep a weather radio in store because some of these could potentially get severe. Now, as we go into Tuesday, the system really starts to get itself cranked up, and we're going to big a big moisture feed up into our region, and we should see some thunderstorm development again in the late afternoon hours. But more importantly, as we get into the Wednesday time frame, all this energy comes out into Nebraska, and there are indications that we could see in excess of 2 inches of rainfall with thunderstorm development across the eastern half of the state, a little bit less as you get to the western part of the state, and this looks to be our best chance for widespread severe weather across the region. As we get into Thursday, the system will lift up into the Dakotas. We'll start to see a clearing pattern develop from the southwest to the northeast as the day progresses, but there still may be some isolated thunderstorm activity, particularly over northern portions of the state. And as we get into Friday, that system lifts up into the western Great Lakes. We'll see another trough coming into the western United States, and it looks like we shouldn't see anything in the way of thunderstorm activity. So in terms of the forecast going forward, you'll notice that we'll see some warm temperatures this weekend with a slight cooling trend as we go through the week, but there's those chances of scattered thunderstorm activity off and on each day, with the best chances particularly tonight and then also on Wednesday. In terms of the 8 to 14-day forecast, the warm conditions continue across the eastern half of the United States, and in terms of precipitation, a very wet pattern to the north of us and a very dry pattern to the south of us.